My name is Stefan Wintermeyer. I think I have to stay here, do I? Or can I move around?
You can move if you want. Remember that microphone is connected to the speakers in the room.
So I can move, but nobody will hear. Nobody will hear me. Okay, that's good. So I'm founder of Amuma GmbH, which is a German company, and now I screw the first couple of slides. Can we do something about the light? I didn't expect it to be that bright. Can you try it off? Okay. I hope you guys can guess what it means. So we are a small company, and we are doing Gemeinschaft, and it has been done 90%, 95% of 4 full-time developers. And as you can see on the keyboard, and that was the thing where I said I just made a mistake. We are a German company, so we are looking from the European perspective to PBX systems. So what is Gemeinschaft? Gemeinschaft is an Asterisk-based PBX. So I know what most people think. Boring. You know, there are enough PBXs already. So why is there one more? It's mostly about scalability. That is our key feature. So Asterisk 1.468, whatever, scales well from, depending on which kind of hardware you're using, of course, from, let's say, 5 to 250 phones. And it doesn't scale well from 5 to 50,000 phones. That's impossible on a single server. You can't buy that piece of hardware that can do that. So how, or does Gemeinschaft scale better? Yes, it does. Our smallest installation, of course, is 1 phone or maybe 2 phones. And the biggest installation, and I'm saying current installation, is 10,000 phones. So that gives you an idea. You won't find a Trix box with 10,000 phones. Gemeinschaft does a heavy lifting for you. You don't have to go to the code. You can, but you don't have to. It's pretty much set up for your needs. I'm not saying that it's easy to install. I wouldn't say it's a nightmare, but it's somewhere between easy and a nightmare. So we try to keep our user group as small as possible by raising the bar installation-wise. But you guys are all smart, so you can do it. All my slides are just, okay, this is such a great photo, but okay. So how do we do that? Of course, we are talking about a cluster, because otherwise, if we have the limitation that one server only can handle, let's say, 500 phones, then you need at least 10 servers to handle 5,000 phones. And again, these are just example numbers. Pick your own on the given hardware. So in this example, you see we have 2 nodes which are active, which have actually phones on them, and we have 1 spare node, warm spare. So what happens if the second node goes down? Hardware failure. The warm spare detects that. And if you have a proper setup, it's going to have a stoned device. So it shoots actually the other node in the head. So it can be sure that the other computer is off. By that, it takes over all the IP address. So for the phones, it becomes the old server. Same thing. Worst case scenario, this takes 6 seconds, and that's the worst case scenario. Normally it takes just maybe a second, maybe 2, but if everything goes wrong, in 6 seconds you have your old system up again. Of course, you're losing the current calls. There's no way of, in this setup, there's no way of failover having the current calls. But for most people, most companies, that is way better than anything else. The configuration is stored in the database. So we have to have a way of distributing that. And we are doing database replication. We have one master, which is in the current version, which is 3.0 or 3.1, a MySQL master, which can be a cluster itself. And then on each Gemeinschaft node, we have a slave of this master. So most operations only need read access to the database. They just read it locally, which is the fastest way anyway. If they have to write something, they write it to the master, and it's getting replicated again to every node in the system. So even the worst case scenario for us is if the master goes down, that can be clustered itself, but let's face it, the worst case scenario is the master goes down, then we cannot create new accounts, which is for us the worst case scenario. We can live with that. But we don't have any problems because the running system has no problem at all. We just cannot create new accounts. That's okay. So this is again the overview of everything. Each node has an asterisk. Each node has a MySQL slave, etc., etc. So it's getting quite complicated. We have clients which have a setup of more than 30 servers. Actually, way more than 30. Whatever. And this can become very complicated. Also, in the last year, many people or many companies moved to VMware servers, which is a good thing if you know what you're doing. If you don't know what you're doing, it just adds another level of complication. Because most people, or the problem is most people think, because we are using VMware, we are on the safe side itself because it's VMware. They don't understand the whole thing because we already have a cluster here. There's no need itself to add another layer there. But if the best reason for that is backup, and if you want to have the possibility to move the whole setup from one location to the other location. Moving is always easier with a VMware system than with real hardware. So again, you have to know what you're doing. The technology we are using with version 3.1 is we have an Asterisk 1.6, we have PHP, we have MySQL. We don't support other databases. We will in the future with 4.0, but right now we don't support it. And this question comes up very often. Could we run it on a, I don't know, PostgreSQL or whatever database? Yes, theoretically you could, but you don't want to invest that much of time to code that. Apache as a web server, a lot of stuff for provisioning, and of course some 160,000 lines of code from our side. So it's not a project which can be done at the weekend. One of the things our clients love is provisioning. So we have provisioning for big phone vendors like Snom, Grandstream, Polycom, Astra, TipTel, a couple of more. And what that means is you get a new phone, you unpack it, you put it in the network plug, and the DHCP server, which is connected with Gemeinschaft, knows the MAC address, the ranges. So it says, okay, this must be a Snom phone. So let's give him this and that IP address, maybe a VLAN, and here's a provisioning server. The provisioning server will be one of the nodes of Gemeinschaft. So the whole system gets tanked by Gemeinschaft. You plug in the phone, and during the very first boot, you already get your prefixed setup. We call it a dummy account. You can do emergency calls from that, and you can do internal calls, but you cannot do, of course, calls to the outside. And then, if you want to use that phone, you have to log in, like you log in into your computer. The coolest thing with a login procedure or hotdesking is you can move your office. For example, if I'm calling in my office somebody, whoever, and he's not there, and in the afternoon I'm at home, in my home office, and I'm logging in the phone in my home office, and I want to call that guy again, what do? I press redial. Because that was the last thing I did in my normal office, and because the system knows who I am and I logged in, I can just do a redial, which is a very, very cool feature. Same thing with ringtones. Thank you. So you can. I will show you a slide how you can upload a ringtone to the web GUI. But you upload a ringtone to the GUI, and whatever phone you have, that phone will have the same ringtone. Of course, in different qualities. If you have a cheap telephone, you get a cheap version of that ringtone. Anyhow, the whole ringtone thing, I totally underestimated it. For me, it's more or less unimportant, but for most of the clients, the ringtone feature, that's a killer feature. Okay, you can use any phone in your company, and you can even switch phones within the companies from vendor to vendor. So if I have a Snom phone here and I have a Polycom here, I can move from this phone to that phone. Of course, if that phone only has, let's say, 5 soft keys, and here I have, let's say, 10 soft keys, there's no way I can use 10 soft keys on a 5 soft keys phone. But within these limitations, I can move all the features from one phone to the other, even from one vendor to the other. So that is very important for us, and that makes our user base independent on vendors. Because if somebody says, I don't want to, or you have to pay me more, or whatever, you just switch the vendor. The GUI. This is just to show you a little bit, to give you a little bit of expression of the GUI. This is the GUI, how to set up a zip gateway. This one is for inbound routing. So we have a cron job style here. You can set up the weekdays, the numbers. You can set up as many routes as you want, or not as you want, probably there must be a limit, I guess 32,000, maybe 64, whatever, I have to ask that. But pretty many routes. You can use regular expressions there. Again, you want to know what you're doing there. Most of our clients who have a problem just put a very magic regular expression